Now, more of Illinois Rising, presented by the Illinois Opportunity Project, the only show directly addressing the problems and solutions for Illinois. Now, from AM 560, here's Dan Proft.
Welcome back to Illinois Rising. I'm Pat Hughes. Dan Proft is taking the day off. Joining me this week is Brian Timponi. And Brian, you know the movie The Dark Knight Rises with Bane?
Yes,
the Bane.
I do.
So there's a scene in The Dark Knight Rises where, Bane is doing the bidding of some guy who wants to take over Wayne Enterprises, and he shows up, and Bane is having a very difficult conversation with this guy, and the guy asks for his associate to leave the room, and Bane says, or asks him to stay, and Bane asks the guy to leave the room. And the guy says to Bane, "Hey, I'm in charge." And Bane puts his hand on his shoulder about 5 seconds before he kills him and says, "Do you feel in charge?" I'm reminded of that this week, one of the great scenes in movie history, because it shows just how evil Bane is and, frankly, how evil the state of Illinois is. Bruce Rauner actually said on the day his primary opponents, a credible, well-liked primary opponent who's an expert in fiscal issues, who's a longtime state legislator, who's a fighter for the people and against Mike Madigan, an actual credible candidate to run against him in the primary, on the same day she filed, he told the state of Illinois, including every single person who voted for him, including me 2 times, last primary and the general election, that he's not in charge of the state. He says, "I'm not in charge." He basically is punting and handing that over to Mike Madigan. Now, I have a sense I know what he was trying to mean, but let me tell you what that says to people who are looking to vote for true reform, for leadership. They're saying this guy is toast. And the only thing that he has between him and a loss in the primary is his money. What say you?
Well, it's a tell. And the tell is, let's not do a political analysis of who has all the power in the state. It's really a tell that he realizes that people know that he did not do the things that he could have done in his position. He realizes that. So he's trying to deflect a blame. He's trying to say, I'm not accountable for my own performance. Look, you're the governor. There are lots of things he should have done, he could have done. He really wasted these years. And we can sit and go through them. The things he could have done that are not, that Mike Madigan can't stop, including just being more aggressive and using his bully pulpit.
Well, let's stay on the politics, too, based on what you just said, because when he was running for governor in 2014, his value proposition was, I'm beholden to nobody. It was that was sort of a signal. I'm beholden to nobody is a signal to I'm so wealthy and successful, right? So I can't be bought. And Madigan has never negotiated with me before. In 2014, and then when he was inaugurated in 2015, he was the guy with Bane saying, I am in charge. And Mike Madigan put his hand on Bruce Rauner's shoulder and said, do you feel in charge? And 3 years later, now he's saying, I was never in charge. I've never been in charge. So the entire value proposition of why he was supposed to be elected in the first place, he is now completely conceded 3 years later.
It's like hopelessness. Hey, we elected a guy who doesn't need the money, right? The biggest problem with politics in Illinois is that we have so many people who earn a living outside of it. They look to how they're going to get paid and play on their trade on their political experience when they get out, so they don't make those hard decisions when they're in office. Jeannie Ives is special because she doesn't care about what happens when she's out of office. Bruce Rauner, we thought, hey, he's going to come in, just like he said, you're going to come in and you're a rich guy, you don't need it. And he wilted, completely wilted and caved in the face of Madigan. And it's really sad. I mean, he was obstinate in not agreeing to certain things, but obstinance isn't leadership.
Right. So take away his money for a second, which I think is the only political asset that he has. Seriously, I think that is the only political asset. He's got money so he can go up on television. He's got money so he can pay field staffers. He's got money so he has a bunch of sycophants that he's paying to keep around, right? Whether it's consultants or anyone else. The money is his political asset. It's his only political asset. If he is able to get by eyes, which I said earlier in the program, I think is a big if, what is his value proposition now to the voters? First of all, in the primary, to Republican primary, and then in the general election, what is he going to tell them why he should be reelected?
Well, I think he's already showing what he's trying to say. Look, if you don't elect me, it's going to get worse. And
how is that even possible?
But that's what he's saying. He's saying, look, I'm the better of two evils. J.B. Pritzker is actually worse than me. And this week he was talking about how J.B. Pritzker only made $13 million on his assets last year and said he's must be the worst investor in the world. Maybe think that maybe he's running for mayor of Lake Forest, not for governor.
Let me tell you something. There is nothing that a factory worker in O'Fallon or a waitress in the southwest suburbs loves more when they're banging out their lives and trying to pay the rent and putting food and clothes for their children. There's nothing they love more than when two fabulously wealthy guys are arguing over who's a good investor and who's not a good investor. They just love that.
The appeal of Donald Trump, beyond his actions, what he's done in office, the appeal of Donald Trump is that he leads and he's very determined and he declares, this is what I'm going to do. This is how I feel. And he calls it straight. And people really like hearing straight talk. I mean, that's a lesson of Donald Trump, whether you like him or you don't. And Bruce Rauner, no straight talk, just deflection, just, hey, if you don't vote for me, we're going to have a graduated income tax. Okay, but that's not leadership. That's not much of a sales pitch to me.
Yeah, so Bruce Rauner is the opposite of Donald Trump. And I think if Bruce Rauner heard us say those words, he'd be very grateful because he wants to be the opposite of Donald Trump. That's what he's trying to do as much as he possibly can. He doesn't realize that is a political problem for him, not a political asset.